Welcome back to Neckbeardia. We got something different for you today. And old Neck decided to dispatch his alpha weeb to take on the case. Today will be part 1 of Nechronica. Can you hear me? Port, Requiem/Romanesque, wakes up in a cracked glass vat. Doesn't think to question the fact that she has an antenna sticking out of her head, or the bolt in her neck, or the fact that 2 of her fingers are metal, and the top of her thumb has been replaced by what looks like a pistol's firing hammer, or that she's being kitted out in a ballistic vest. There's a girl outside the glass, dressed in rags. She's carrying a huge box and what looks like a shovel. Port finally realizes that the other girl is talking to her. Yes, I can hear you. Other girl's face shines up like a lighthouse. Introduces herself as Protoka, Stacy. 2 of them go about trying to get Port out of the vat. While Protoka is messing with the buttons, there's a sound of shattering glass off to the side. It's a girl with her upper torso secured to a giant quartet of mechanical crab legs, and a boring drill built over or around her right hand. She's broken out of her own vat. I'm Tachi, Thanatos/Romanesque. Cool. New friends. The vat systems are all offline/fried. Port tests the glass of the vat herself and it just crumbles away. The 3 set off, exiting through what looks like a massive holding area of girls in similar states to Tachi and Port. They're all feral and clawing or screaming at the glass. Some vats are broken and empty. Port takes a madness point. Trio comes to the door of the holding area, more like a vault door than anything. Tachi uses her drill to bore a hole in it, but sets off a safety lock in the process. Hole is too small for the 3 to get through. The door isn't opening. There are more loose feral girls through the door. Protoka, how did you get in here if the door is closed? I came in through the vents, but the fans are all still on, so... What? If they're still on, then how'd you get through them? A little at a time? Pfft, sure. It can't be that bad. The girls find Protoka's entrance point, a hole in the ceiling. Protoka and Port latch on to Tachi, and she jumps them up into the hole. Vent system is massive. Easily enough space for the 3 of them to walk abreast if Tachi wasn't wide as fuck. Meander down the vent a little ways, following the airflow, and come to a fan. It is that bad. The circulation fan blades are a blur. Well, Tachi is here now. Thanatos.executable. Group proceeds. Air vent dumps them into a security office. Lots of dust, blank monitors, and a skeleton. Girls explore, look for papers, try and figure out what the heck is going on. Port digs around for a power button, finds one, and presses it. Monitor banks spring to life, so do the security systems. Port watches a feed of the containment area door opening, only for all the other girls still trapped there to get splattered all over the floors by the now live auto turrets. Avoided madness points gain, but she hasn't parsed that they're feral. Is convinced that she just gunned down a bunch of random girls. Spends a minute rocking back and forth and I'm sorrying at the monitor while Protoka and Tachi look around. Eventually figure out that they're in a bunker. Human staff died some time ago when the air circulation/purification system quit out. No logs as to why it's running now. Find a map that points them to the way out. The 3 collect themselves and start moving through the complex. Walk through the halls is fairly uneventful. They sidestep around a few operational auto turrets and manage to avoid the groups of ferals that are streaming out of the killing ground of the containment area. Come to another massive vault door with exit plastered over it in fading yellow. This one has a keypad. No clue what the code is supposed to be. Tachi walks up to the keypad on a whim and punches in a smiley face. The door opens. Girls walk out into the less stale air. Corpses everywhere. Mostly civilians, some soldiers, all apparently trying to get into the bunker, or at least shelter at the gate. Giant mass rises up on the far end of the cave. Huge mecha zombie with a rocket sledge. DM just calls it a gargant. It's flanked by 2 smaller horrors in riot gear and wielding heavy weapons. There's also a legion. Battle commences. Can't remember most of the specifics, but it mostly revolves around the gargant rocket skating around with the hammer flying. His riot buddies laying down fire on the dolls and the legion just kind of being around. Protoka's a hinderbot, keeping the other girls covered while Tachi brawls it out, and Port hangs back, firing off with the Psycho Blaster. We didn't quite understand the timing mechanics at this point, so I thought Psycho Blaster was like any other weapon. Whoops. A troop of nightmares come shuffling out the bunker door to join the fray. They don't manage a whole lot before being taken out by Tachi and Port, but it's one more hazard. I think Port or Tachi took some madness points, but I can't remember. Gargant rocket skates itself into a pile of explosive barrels. Port sends a shot into the pile and blows the whole thing sky high. Combat over. Injuries are light. Port has a busted leg. Protoka regens most of her injuries. Port comes with a medikit, so she patches up Tachi. Port tries very hard not to think about the fact that she's just salvaged a replacement femur from another girl. The three crawl out of the access cave into a grassy plain. Empty in all directions. The sky is gray as far as they can see. No sign of life. They pick a direction and start walking. I don't really do this that often, so I hope that reads okay. Okay, so session 2. I forgot to mention that Port picked up a shotgun at the end of the last session, so she's got a damage source other than Psycho Blaster or her fists. Can't remember what the other girls picked up. Girls have been walking for some time. Landscape and light doesn't change. It's just steel gray sky and tall yellow grass as far as the eye can see. Eventually they happen upon a house out in the middle of nowhere. Well, house. It's really a proper mansion, though it looks fit to topple over. Decided to explore because, why not? Place looks marginally better on the inside. Was clearly the McMansion of McMansions in its heyday, but now it's just holding together. Dither around on the first floor, find a storeroom. Tachi finds a person's hand in one of the boxes, uses it to give Port a minor panic attack. More exploring. Girls happen onto a locked door. Fuck looking for keys. Port presses her shotgun up to the keyhole and blows the doorknob apart. Spends a moment giggling like a dork and feeling like an action movie star, then wondering what an action movie star is because she can't quite remember. Suddenly there's a little girl. She looks immaculate. Clean clothes, no injuries, no dirt or grime. Looks healthy. Please stop breaking my house. Port and Tachi are very sorry, make a heartfelt promise to not break anything else. She introduces herself as Joy, and is apparently very excited to have company. She shows us around before inviting us up to her room. Doesn't talk about the first floor much, but she points out the door to the infirmary. Second floor has a dining room in the north wing, her parents' bedroom, and a library. There's door access in the dining room that she apparently glanced over. It's easily the most ornate thing in the hallway. Everything is either falling apart or covered in grime. The dining room is actually a bit of a wreck with the furniture thrown everywhere. Still no other people. Joy's bedroom door is blindingly pink, covered in a facade of white rabbits scampering through a field. Her room is the girliest, frou-frouiest, pinkiest thing you could imagine. Filled with children's books, stuffed animals, a tea set, the list goes on. Like Joy, it's immaculate, ecstatic to have company. Joy starts handing out presents to her new friends. Port is happy just to have found a place halfway normal, and happily accepts a dress from Joy. Protoka is more experienced, and so more suspicious. She begins to rifle through the shelves, looking for anything odd. The dresser that produced the dress is completely empty. Tachi is confused but not especially worried. She sits down on the bed to watch Port and Joy play, and passes through the non-existent mattress and lands on a tangle of box spring. Port jabbers a little more with Joy, and the two of them sit down for a tea party, but the tea set was smashed to pieces a long time ago. Once Port sees through the illusion, it shatters completely. Joy's room is as dilapidated as any other in the house. Furniture is upended, the bookcase is destroyed, the stuffed animals are just piles of dirty rags. Joy doesn't seem to notice. After some surreptitious whispering between the dolls, Port asks Joy if she'd like to help them explore the rest of the house. Joy agrees. As they leave, the dolls realize that there's a massive blood splatter on the door and hallway floor. Small hands have dragged blood over the rabbit facade. The dining room is first. It's a wreck, but not obliterated. Furniture's been thrown everywhere. The long table was thrown against the far wall at some point. There are scratches all over the surface of it. There's a door off to the side. Because I forgot to mention it in the last post, the dolls are mostly in agreement that Joy isn't deliberately duping them and probably needs some sort of help. Mostly because Protoka agrees but still wants to dip, but the other two convince her to stay, or more accurately, can't be persuaded to leave. I also just remembered that the area just beyond the entrance hall has been turned into an impromptu hospital. It was full of cots and basic medical equipment, but there wasn't anything really weird about it, other than it being there. The girls scour the dining room but don't find much. There's actually a second door buried under all the debris. ᴑᴇᴜ continues exploring the dining room with joy while Port takes a look into the first door. Tachi takes the newly discovered room. The first room turns out to be the servants' quarters. Nothing is obviously out of place here, though it's awfully dusty, and oddly well ordered considering how many beds and dressers there are. She digs around and finds a brass locket. The picture inside looks to be a husband and wife who work together as serving staff. She pockets it to ask Joy about later. There's another door at the end of the quarters. Meanwhile, Tachi's assigned room looks a lot like any other storeroom. Lots of boxes. She blunders into a hatch on the floor, which opens up into a staircase. She follows it down, leads into a small stone room. There isn't much here. A small tub, another door. Tachi finds a small key on the floor, and a skull. Opening the door spits her out into the entryway. The exterior side is made to blend into the wall. She closes it back up and starts back toward the dining room. Writing this out now, I realize that my sequence of events is off. The blood stain wouldn't be discovered until later. Makes me wish I'd started my detailed notes earlier. Back to Port. The room beyond the servants' quarters is the pantry. The shelves are all bare. There's a meat cleaver embedded in one of the counters. All the food prep surfaces are stained dark red. Port digs through the cabinets, looking for anything of interest. Finds a jar covered in grime. Picks up the jar and dusts it off. It's a pair of human eyes preserved in formaldehyde, swirling to face her. I see you. A thunderclap shakes the house. Port scrambles back into the dining room. Tachi is back by now. ᴑᴇᴜ and Joy seem none the worse for wear. Library next. How bad can a library be? As the group move forward through the hall, Tachi hangs back a moment at the ornate door Joy doesn't look at. She places her hand on the handle. Before she can pull, she's overwhelmed by an all-encompassing sense of dread. She lets go of the door and crabs after the group. The library is about what they expected. Lots of books on a writing desk that appears to have been owned by Joy's father. Joy gravitates to a small section of children's books off in the corner while the dolls look over the desk. The subjects are eclectic, ranging from wood carving, anatomy, and folders of medical notes on various patients in the improvised clinic. There's even a book on doll making. Port asks Joy about the doll book offhandedly. Joy doesn't answer. She goes rigid for a moment before flickering in the air like a faulty projector image. Then she's fine. Totally fine. Weird. Tachi stumbles into a kind of closet thing nestled in the shelves. But the dolls are worried about opening it up around Joy and causing another episode. Port fibs a stomach ache. Her, Joy, and ᴑᴇᴜ head downstairs to the medicine storage to get something for her. Tachi opens up the closet. It turns out to be some small personal servants' quarters built into the wall. Really just a bed with a small dresser and a mirror. As she edges into the room, she can see the image of another person in the mirror. It's a maid. She's on her knees, apparently begging someone for something. The words, "Please forgive me," crawl over the image. Another thunder crack. The mirror's blank now, with a crude "No" carved into the glass. The avenue spent, Tachi heads back downstairs. She wanders around for a bit instead of going to the medicine pantry, but the echo of a chainsaw in the dark sends her scurrying back. The medicine room is a mess. There are bottles and pills and tools scattered everywhere. A pair of opaque yellow glass drums dominate one wall of the room. There's an unmarked door near the back. Joy has handed Port a cup of medicine for her stomach. Whatever it used to be, it's just black sludge now. Port takes a sip anyway to try and placate the girl, and manages to keep the revulsion from being apparent to Joy. Offhandedly, she asks what's behind the other door. It looks like a closet. Joy flickers like she did in the library, acts as if she never heard the question. ᴑᴇᴜ and Tachi distract her while Port edges through the door. It's an operating theater, covered in blood. Just absolutely drenched in blood. It's smeared everywhere. On the table, the equipment, the walls. The floor is caked with it. There isn't anything of note to be found here aside from the gore. Port slides back down into the medicine room without alerting Joy. I have no idea why Tachi's player went this route next, but Tachi gets a wild hair and pries open one of the vats next to the wall. Reaching in, she heaves out a corpse. A corpse that looks exactly like Joy, except she's blonde, and two of her fingers on her left hand are backwards. Joy vanishes. Where's Joy? While Port is freaking out, Tachi is already prying open the other vat and scooping out the occupant. Another homunculus that looks almost identical to Hope, but missing half of her face with red hair. Give us eyes. The homunculi each take a single breath before expiring on the floor. Things are fucked. But we just can't leave Joy, because it seems pretty obvious she's a victim. Where is she even gone? The dolls start scouring the mansion room by room, looking for clues. Tachi detours while Protoka and Port check the bottom floor. She goes back up to check Joy's room. This was actually when Tachi found the blood stain on Joy's door, and the drag trail leading down the hallway. Joy kept it hidden until she disappeared. Finds a nondescript key under the bed frame and returns to Protoka and Port down below. The key Tachi found in the secret staircase fits in a locked door they found earlier in their exploring. The room beyond is just a pit. There's a length of chain coiled up at the edge. Port, being the lightest, she makes a loop at the end of the chain and hooks her foot through it. Protoka and Tachi lower her down. It just keeps going. After what feels like forever, she sees something. It's a hand. It's hundreds of hands. Thousands of reaching hands. Reaching for her. She screams and nearly avoids minus points again. Tachi and Protoka haul her up. The lower floor is exhausted. They go upstairs to check the parents' room, which has been locked. But Tachi has the key. The room is fairly nondescript, aside from the apparent opulence. As the girls are combing through it, they find a series of letters from Joy's mother. It's apparent that she's aware of an affair between Joy's father and the head maid. There's also mention of his erratic and aloof behavior. Apparent that she knows something's wrong, but not that she understands the extent of things or how far it would go. The human butchery, the thousands of dead in the basement, the child's bloody prints on her own bedroom door, etc. With nearly all the house explored, the girls set out looking for Joy. They eventually spot her through a window, sitting out next to a tree in a little courtyard, dejected and alone. True to the prior thunderclaps, the sky is dark, and the tree's dead limbs are whipped in the oncoming wind, though Joy doesn't seem to notice. The girls make their way to her, ask her what has her upset. They want to help. I can't be sad. Port and Tachi approach slowly with Protoka in tow. The storm starts to get worse the closer they come. The two lead dolls sit down next to her, Port taking Joy's hand in hers, and Tachi draping herself over Joy's back. Port: Joy, you can't be happy all the time. This isn't how the world works. Sometimes you need to feel bad or else it'll eat you up. Joy looks up at Port, teary-eyed. I'm not needed anymore? The storm is getting worse. It's pelting rain. Port is clearly pretty confused, but keeps talking. I don't want you to go away, Joy. Everyone needs to know how to be happy, but you need to know how to feel sad. You need to know both. It's good to know both. Lightning strikes the tree. Sadness is kind of like the cold. You know how when you feel the cold, it's really just warmth going away? Happiness is like heat. It has to come from somewhere. Has to be built up, like when you're starting a fire. It has to be built up from embers to start, but then it grows and grows. It can help keep everyone warm. Right now things are cold, but we can start building a new fire. Tachi chimes in, we can do it together, which is probably the first full sentence she's said since her introduction. Abruptly, the storm starts to die down. It's still raining, but the lightning has stopped and the wind isn't threatening to pick up the mansion anymore. Joy looks up at the dolls now with a new steadiness. She has a grim look on her face. There's someone we need to go see. Port nods. We'll be with you. Joy leads them back into the house up to the 2nd floor, to the door she wouldn't even glance at earlier. The party enters. On the opposite end of the room is Joy, or rather, an immaculately made doll that looks exactly like her, perched on a small throne. This is the real ghost in the mansion, the hole that Joy was cleaved from, the tortured little girl who balled up all her happy memories and hid them away so she wouldn't destroy them. Her father tried to turn her into a perfect, immortal doll, but his work fell short. She's just another tortured horror now. Puppet soldiers with spears walk about on invisible strings. There are wisps of fear, anger, and regret flying around like dust bunnies. The old doll's hate is a palpable force the girls have to work against just to move forward. Combat phase starts. The wisps swarm around Protoctoka almost immediately while Tachi gets stuck in with the toy soldiers. Port is doing the marksman thing, laying into the legions with her shotgun and taking shots of opportunity at the old doll with her psycho blaster. Joy is kneeling in the back, offering prayers for her new friends. She acts as a counterbalance against the old doll's hate and protects the other 3 from passive madness. The 3 girls grind forward, bolstered by Joy's prayer. The old doll doesn't respond to the words of any of the girls. It just attacks them and rages. In the end, it's less a resounding defeat and more like a mercy kill. Battered and broken from Port's range attacks and inanimate by nature, the old doll can't even move to defend itself, or even flee as the 3 close in. It's Tachi who finishes things, a drill to the heart. Joy, her original ego and source of her projection finally destroyed, begins to fade away. Port lowers her weapon, tears streaming from her eyes. This isn't how I wanted to go. In the end, all she can do is wave goodbye. Goodbye, Joy. I'm sorry we couldn't. She sniffs. I'm sorry. Joy just smiles back. Don't worry. This is the happiest I've felt in, well, ever. And then she's gone. The dolls left the mansion shortly after. Tachi held on to the silver key to the parents' bedroom as a memento, and Port kept the locket she found as a treasure to remember Joy by. Without the old doll to prop everything up, the mansion started to crumble on itself almost before the dolls got out the door, though it wouldn't collapse completely for some time yet. With no real direction, the dolls nursed their wounds as best they could and started off down the road, to wherever that wasn't here. End. This is the end of the story at this particular point. Now, if you like the story, it intrigues you, and you want to hear more of it, let me know down below in the comments. That way we can decide whether we want to drop the story or continue on with something else. Now, if you like this story, and others like them, be sure to like and subscribe to Neckbeardia, and click the bell icon so you know when the video is released through the week. This has been GuardBro, and I will see you next time.
All those moments will be lost in time.